Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this next interview of the She Shakes the World interview series. And today I am very, very delighted to have with me a medical herbalist. Her name is Hannah Charman. And when I connected with Hannah a few months ago, I just knew I had to get her on this interview series because she is not only is she a medical herbalist, she helps women to navigate the menopause who don't necessarily want to, who aren't able to take HRT. And this is a really interesting topic, not pertinent to me, but I'm sure to many of you. I know I'm perimenopausal and I'm coming up to that part of time in my life. And I would love to know what my options are. And I would really invite you to be open today. Obviously, the HRT is a wonderful thing, and I know many people take it. It can help many people in many ways. But if you don't want to go down that route, or you're not able to go down that route, there are other options out there for you, which is why I have brought the amazing Hannah on here today. So Hannah, welcome. Just tell us a little bit more about yourself, what brought you to become a medical herbalist, and then we're going to go into talking about some topics around HRT and around the menopause and perimenopausal things, and we're going to really help women today get some really good tips from you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me as well. It's been quite a long time since we first talked about doing this, and it's International Women's Day today as well. Yeah. So amazing. All the more reason to get together and have a chat about women's stuff. Yes. So yes, I have worked as a medical herbalist now for 23 years, and I came to it quite by accident. We say, I didn't choose herbal medicine kind of chose me, really, which is how it often goes. So to cut a long story short, when I was very young, like lots of little girls, I wanted to be a vet, and I was determined that that's what I was going to do. So I worked really hard at school. And then I had a different hobby every night of the week and at weekends. And one day when I was 14, in the space of 5 minutes, I'd gone from being a normal, happy, healthy schoolgirl to not being able to move. And that was the beginning of a 2-year journey with, oh, bless you, with chronic fatigue syndrome. So it became very obvious very early on that the doctors were not going to be able to help me with that at all. So thankfully, I got taken to see different alternative practitioners like homeopaths and hypnotherapists and people like that. And between everyone, in the space of a couple of years, I got better. But it was a really pivotal moment, not just in my life, but my family's life as well, because like with the hypnotherapy, my parents were so impressed by the change and how fast it was that they both quit their jobs and retrained as hypnotherapists and so on. So I've kind of been involved in alternative medicine since I was about 16, and I used to help out with Reiki in their hypnotherapy practice. So obviously my ideas of becoming a vet kind of went to one side, and I decided that I wanted to follow a career in alternative medicine. So I trained in Western herbal medicine at Middlesex University for 4 years, which is pretty standard for proper medical herbalist training. It's between 3 and 5 years. Yeah, it's very intense. I've actually got friends who are doctors who are now retraining as herbalists, and they say that the herbalist training is far more difficult than their medical training was, which is quite something. So yeah, so with medical herbalists, we have similar skills to a GP in that we can do physical examinations, we can diagnose, we can interpret blood test results, we can liaise with other healthcare practitioners and just kind of keep an eye out for things that might be going on behind the scenes, which is a nice skill to have. And there have been a few patients I've had over the years where I've referred them back to the GP, and it's actually been quite worthwhile doing, shall we say.
Excellent.
So I should say that medical herbalist is not a protected title. So if you're watching this, you could go out tomorrow, set yourself up as a medical herbalist with no training, no insurance, no experience, nothing, and you would not be breaking any rules. So if you are thinking of working with a medical herbalist, you would need to just do your background checks first and make sure that that person is properly qualified and trained, and preferably a member of a governing body as well, just in case you have any cause for complaint, and they can help to deal with that for you. So yeah, so I graduated in 1999. I've been in practice ever since. And then over the years, sorry.
What led you to, okay, I want to specialize in or help women through the menopause phase? What was it that led you to that?
Well, I mean, there have been various female relatives of mine who got into real trouble, been sectioned under the Mental Health Act, for example, when nothing like that has ever happened to them before, and they reach menopause and their mental health just goes way out of control. So it's something I've always been quite aware of, and I wanted to be sure that I didn't go down that same road. And then I had my son quite late, so I was 38 when he was born, and like all new mums, I got baby brain. And then we got to sort of his 5th birthday, and I was thinking, well, how long does this baby brain last? Because I've still got it. It's, you know, and he is sleeping better now, and I am still tired, but I'm not as tired, and surely it should be gone by now. And then it dawned on me that it wasn't baby brain, actually it was perimenopause, brain fog, and various other delights were starting to creep up as well. So I've treated my own symptoms with herbs, and I'm going to continue doing that until I'm well and truly through the other side. But likewise, my friends are a similar age to me and going through similar things. So I started treating them, and they got better and sent their friends, and then clients started coming from other places. So it's kind of almost happened by accident, really.
That way, when you're going through something and you manage to navigate it, then you attract people who are
absolutely. Yeah, because it works so well. It's made for doing that. It works really, really well, and it's what your grandmothers, great grandmothers, great great grandmothers, everyone all the way back through time would have used.
And what do women need to look out for? So say they're sort of they're not sure, am I in perimenopause? What obviously we're just talking generally, what type of symptoms may they show to feel like, oh, they think perhaps I'm in the perimenopausal stages?
Yeah, it's a good question. So a lot of women are moving into perimenopause and have no idea that that's what's going on. First thing to remember is actually, although it usually happens sort of between the ages of 40 and 50, it can happen at any age. So you can be 18 and starting to go through perimenopause if you're very unlucky, or in your 20s or 30s. So because it's unusual for that, relatively unusual for that to happen, even the GP will probably not have that on their radar. If you're getting these sorts of symptoms, they're not going to think, well, that's perimenopause because she's too young. But what you find in the very early stages is very subtle things starting to change. So say, for example, you might have itchy skin every now and again. You might get insomnia where you've never had it before, or anxiety is another really common first symptom. And I hear all the time women coming in saying, I don't know why I'm like this. This is not me. I'm not an anxious person. I never have been. And now all of a sudden I can't bear to get in the car and drive somewhere. And sometimes it's only in specific situations that anxiety is there. And sometimes it's just more general. Bowel habit can change. So if you've always been very regular, sometimes you're not so regular. Hair might fall out a little bit, you know, your skin might change a little bit, and it's quite subtle things, but when you add them all together you think, oh, actually, you know, there's that and that, maybe there's a bit more going on.
Just out of interest, some women might say, so what, is there a change in the hormones going on? Is that often what?
It starts off, usually it starts off quite slowly and subtly, and then it will ramp up a little bit more over the years, but it's basically a second adolescence. So, you know, previously in more sort of pagan Druid societies, they recognized that a woman's life had 3 phases. So there was the maiden phase, which you were in as a girl, and then you transition through adolescence into what they would call the mother phase, which is your childbearing years. And then you have your second transition. In China, they call it the second spring, which is quite nice.
Love that.
It's our second spring, ladies. Enjoy it. So we go through the second transition, which is obviously perimenopause and menopause, into what they used to call the crone phase. But to me, like, I don't want to be a crone. I don't think. I haven't got a warty nose or a, you know, headscarf or anything like that.
Someone just emailed me about this. So interesting saying crone, because they actually said, well, actually, this is our crown phase, not our crone phase, but
yes, that's much better. Yes. So it's basically your elder phase. And it was all very lovely back in the day, where older people, older women in particular, were very highly revered and respected, and, you know, people would go to them for their wisdom and their life experience. But in society today, unfortunately, it's not quite the same. So I think part of this reason why so many of us dread menopause and getting older is because we don't feel that we're any use to society anymore, but I love hanging out with older people, and I could do it all day every day. And I just think it's such a shame that we don't treasure them a bit more and get them going to schools and hospitals and places like that, and just interact with older people, because they've got so much wisdom. And I don't know about you, but I'm quite pleased in a way that I don't do so many ridiculous things now like I did in my teens and 20s. There's a time and a place for it, but as you get older you think, I just haven't got the headspace to go paying for those kinds of mistakes anymore. It's nice to have a few years behind you, I think.
And I do think there is a phase now where things are changing, and older women, who are going through the menopause, older women generally are getting that more revered again, and we are being listened to, and we are owning, sort of stepping forwards into our power more, and sharing. I really feel that that time is happening now, and it's going to get bigger and bigger. And so it's interesting that you mentioned that. It's fascinating what you mentioned about the crone and to be revered. And I think I feel that is coming back now.
Well, there's a theory as well that actually menopause is essential for the survival of the human species thus far. Wow. So there's only humans and certain species of whale have menopause. All other animals are in their childbearing phase until they die, basically.
Interesting.
So the thinking is it's grandmothering is what they call it. So what they were saying is that anyone who's had a human baby knows that they're very labor intensive. And if you lived in a tribe, and particularly a nomadic tribe, where you'd have to go out and forage for food and hunt for food, the people who are physically fit and strong enough to do that were generally the parents, but they couldn't do it because they are staying at home with the kids. So menopause was like an evolutionary adaptation around that, which meant that post your childbearing years, you could still stay home and raise the little ones whilst the parents went out and provided food for the rest of the tribe.
Hello, this is absolutely fascinating.
Cool, isn't it? It's like, so although we're being trained and conditioned to dread menopause and curse it and think it's a disaster, and we're all going to be, with bones crumbling and going gaga by the time we're 65, it is not like that. Okay, this is not how it is.
I love this.
You just have to really filter out the messages that you're getting around this, because as we say in hypnotherapy, what the mind expects tends to happen, and these messages are really more powerful than most of us realize. So just expect a lovely menopause and you're much more likely to get one.
I love it. That's how I am planning on navigating it, as you said, expecting it. So we talked about the signs and the perimenopause, and we went off on a tangent, but I love the tangent that we went off. It was go down that way. What can women do? So and obviously this has to be fairly generic, doesn't it? But if they are struggling right now with fatigue, with changing their hormones, changing their skin, a bit of foggy brain, they're feeling things are shifting, rather than going down, panic, there's something wrong. What are some tips that you could share that could perhaps potentially just support them right now, that they could make maybe some lifestyle changes they could?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a large part of the reason why we do tend to struggle more with menopause in this part of the world than they do in Asia is that by the time we reach perimenopause, we are chronically stressed, chronically sleep deprived, chronically undernourished, under-exercised. We have put our own needs last, usually for decades. We've put family first, kids first, elderly parents, career, and we've come right at the bottom of the pile. So I say you always have to start with self-care. Do as much as you can under your own steam first. Have a good look at your life and how you're spending your time, and whether you are constantly on the go and your body's just saying, come on, enough now, you need to kind of rein this in a little bit. And if that is the case, how can you do that? Can you get a cleaner? Can you get the family to muck in a little bit more with household chores? Can you give yourself a pamper day every so often? Can you have a foot bath of an evening? Go and get the washing up bowl, have a nice hot foot bath whilst you're sat on the sofa watching your favorite TV program. Little things. It doesn't have to be, big in terms of time or cost. It can be little treats here and there, and just a reevaluation of your boundaries and what's acceptable and what isn't. We've done this in my household at Christmas. We had a new set of rules. So if you cook, you don't clean up. I don't cook on Saturdays. The boys have to do it because, they're perfectly capable of doing it. They've just let me do it all this time, and I've let them let me do it. So it's you've got to kind of take some responsibility if you feel like if you're doing more than your fair share. And that's kind of where your boundaries aren't quite where they need to be. And it's not a blame thing. It's just, what was okay a few years ago is now a little bit more than your body can cope with. And that's okay.
Yes.
Your threshold goes right down in terms of what you can manage. So always start with self-care.
Some women say, oh, I don't have time. There's the one thing that they don't, I can't got time for this. I've not got time for this. I've not got time for this. And what would you say to someone? Because I often come across people saying that, and sometimes I feel, and it becomes a bit of a martyrdom, sort of like, to not find the time because I've always got to be busy, I've got to be on the go, I've got to be doing this. And I'm trying to say that in a loving way, but
yeah,
so important actually to find the time. And I think we can find the time if we learn to say no to things, if we learn to say, no, I can't do that, and not take so many things on. And I think no is the shortest sentence in the English language, but
it's the hardest one to say, isn't it?
Hardest one
because
to say.
And a lot of it again comes down to our conditioning, that we are supposed to be superwoman. We are supposed to work at least a 40-hour week and raise the kids and run the house and cook the teas and do all the life admin and the taxiing and we were never designed to be on the go the whole time. This is not what human beings are designed to do, and animals don't do that. If you look at other species that we share our planet with, they don't do that. Why do we have to do it? And your capacity for that does go down, and it kind of pushes you into a corner, because even if you did want to continue at that pace, which I certainly don't, you can't do it. Your capacity goes right down, and maybe it needs to.
Yeah, fascinating. I love what you're sharing. I really hope people listen with there's men listening to this, listen to what sort of like the women's body goes through as well, and why there might be changes, and suddenly why what the thing, if they're noticing things happening in the household with their partners, maybe this is why, maybe they're going through the perimenopause, and changes need to happen. So yes, it's about making yourself more of a priority now, because our bodies, from what I'm hearing, aren't as able to do as much as we were when we were younger. We're not meant to be doing physically or mentally as much as we were able to do when we were younger. So that self-care, from what I'm hearing, is super important. And what else do you do? So how does a medical herbalist also support someone? So say someone is listening to this and they're still struggling, and they're like, down the HRT route, and obviously go and explore that if you feel that's right for you. But if they don't want, not able to, how can a medical herbalist help navigate the menopause?
So most of my patients get around about an 80% improvement in their symptoms within 8 to 12 weeks. And I'm sure, having looked at this in various ways over the years, it's not just the herbs that are doing it. So the herbs are really important in terms of kind of tweaking and nudging your body back towards wellness. So with HRT, the difference is your body is trying to reduce the amount of estrogen, because that's what it needs to do. It needs to kind of calm it down, because you don't need to be in your childbearing phase anymore. It's time to move into a new phase. You don't need as much estrogen. But actually, if your body's working properly, you still have a good amount of estrogen post-menopause. It's just a different form, made in a different way. So by adding in more estrogen with HRT, you're kind of forcing your body into a state that's not natural for it at that phase in your life, and it's up to you whether you are happy with that or not. What we do with herbal medicine is we are giving the body the resources it needs to make that transition itself. And this is how herbal medicine generally works in all health conditions. So it works on the basis that your body's really clever. It knows exactly what it's doing. It just doesn't always have the resource to do it. So with herbal medicine, which are also intelligent medicines, going into an intelligent body, the two work beautifully together, and your body just kind of gets it and understands what it needs to do. But besides the actual herbs, you've got that moral support. You've got someone who understands you, someone who's going to ask you loads of questions and say, actually, that symptom that you just mentioned, that might not be perimenopause. Maybe we should get that checked out. It could be something else. you know, you've got someone who's going to listen to you. If you've just had a really bad day, you can offload, we can have a bit of a laugh together. If your husband's not understanding what's going on with you and you're getting grief at home, no fault of anyone, you know, it's just because there's a misunderstanding there of what's going on. You've got someone you can offload to. So that's that whole package. It's that care, it's the compassion, it's the nurturing, and someone actually taking care of you for a change, I think has a big impact on it. Plus, you're always in charge of your own treatment. So very often I get women and we go through their first consultation, I ask them tons of questions because I'm building up a picture of what's going on. And they've got like 20 different symptoms happening. And I say at the end, okay, where do you want to start? What's your first priority? What's the first symptom you want to nail? And then we build their herbal prescription around that. So they're in charge of their own treatment, which is, again, vastly different to feeling completely out of control and trying 12 different kinds of HRT to see which one works.
Yeah.
And because I mix together about 6 or 7 herbs in the bottle at a time, and each one does lots of different things. So even if you've got other health conditions as well, we can treat those alongside the menopause. So it's about treating you, it's not treating your individual symptoms. But added into that, I've also brought in health coaching over the years, because what I was finding is the herbs were doing a great job as best they could. But, you know, if someone's having chicken, burger and chips for tea every night and 3 hours sleep and they hate their job and they're not getting any exercise, with the best of it in the world, the herbs can only do so much, can't they? Because those basics of good health, the fundamental bits, are just not there.
And I love that, because you're all then also empowering someone to decide actually to not just rely on something else to sort them out. Actually, they're then they're looking at themselves and then making those lifestyle changes and choices which appeal or not. Like you said, herbs can't necessarily just fix everything, can they? They can make a big difference, but actually taking some ownership and responsibility for your own sort of behavior also can help.
Absolutely. And for particularly things like weight loss, you know, again, the herbs can do a bit, but it comes down to diet and exercise as well. So that's the 3 magic ingredients for weight loss: right diet, daily exercise, and your hormones have to be in balance. So if you're doing the first 2 and the hormones are not in balance, that's where the herbs come in.
Got you.
But you know, you're not going to lose the weight if you're eating junk food all the time and not getting any exercise. So it's it's getting that balancing act in place. And it works really well. And not only, you know, short term to get you through menopause, it gets you into good habits then for the rest of your life, which has to be a good thing, doesn't it?
Because then you're navigating that later stage of your life in a much better place, with a better diet, with more exercise, and taking care of your body, and perhaps being more aware of your body than you were when you were slightly younger. Hannah, I'm just going to ask you another question. Are there any resources that women can go to? You know, do you have, you know, that they can perhaps do some reading? Or do you have anything on your website? Do you have anything that they can go to? If they're interested and they want to just check out some more resources, is there anything that they can go to?
My new website is about to be launched in the next few days, actually, and there'll be plenty on there. So there's a little questionnaire that you can fill in to see what stage of perimenopause you're at. There are a couple of free downloads. There's a couple of invitations to menopause cafes that you can come to that I run online once a month. They're on at lunchtime, so they don't eat into your working day. And particularly if you work on your own at home, it's nice to be able to talk menopause with some other lovely ladies. And there's also a new self-care course that you can do at home under your own steam. So that's modular, and you can do, you know, just the modules that you're particularly interested in, or you'll be able to do all 8 modules. And it just really goes into the detail on the self-care. So it kind of gets you, particularly if you're in the early stages or you're just aware that perhaps other members of your family have had problems in menopause and you don't want to go down that road, what you can put in place now just to help you have a smoother ride.
Fantastic. I feel that this is going to be needed. I feel like you might have a website after this interview, because I think it's great that you've got these resources so people can, what is your website? So I'll put it in the show notes as well.
It's www. And then I'll spell it for you. It's PHYSIC health. So it's physichealth.uk.
Great.
No co, just .uk.
.uk, and people could if people could access you from anywhere, they don't have to come and see you face to face. Have I understood that correctly?
Yeah, so I work mostly online. Probably at least 3/4 of my patients are online, mostly in the UK. I've got a couple in Canada as well. So yeah, so pretty much anywhere. The only place that's a bit tricky is the US, just from an insurance point of view. But that should be okay for the home learning side. It's just the treatments that get a bit difficult. So
wonderful, Hannah. This has been absolutely fascinating. I hope everyone has really learned that actually menopause isn't something that we should fear. It's actually something we should. And this is what I'm hearing from you. This is something embrace, and it's an exciting stage in our life. Expect it to go well, and it's more likely to go well. And let's try and not get too caught up in I think that the negativity and the fear around menopause. And if you do want to go through a more natural route, there are options. And if you know that there are many medical herbalists out there as well, as long as you find, like you said, Hannah, the ones that are properly qualified, properly trained, have the right, you know, you've had a good 4 or 5 years of medical training to be able to do this, then that is an option for some people.
Absolutely. It's well worth doing. Yes, it's an investment, but it's an investment in you and your long-term health, and it's worth doing.
Fantastic. Hannah, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the She Shakes the World podcast series. I really hope you have been inspired by the guests that I have brought to you. And if you are motivated in any way to do some deeper work on yourself, and you are curious to know how I could potentially support you overcome all the things that are holding you back so that you can fully step into your power, your gifts, and shake the world in the way that you are meant to, please head over to my website, rachelwaite.com. You will find the link also in the episode notes. And if you head over there, you will find some free meditations. You will find out information about my group program. You will find out how I could potentially work privately with you to really do some deep work for you. Like I said, head over to rachelwaite.com. The link is also in the episode notes, and I truly hope that I see you hopping on a call with me, or that you are able to download one of those meditations, or that you simply come back and listen to another episode of the She Shakes the World series. So many opportunities are open to you. Thank you once again, and you take care.